Hey there, this is Tom with the Diogenes Lamp podcast. I appreciate you listening in, and most importantly, I hope you enjoy what you hear. Before we start with today's episode, I'm going to ask you for a small favor. Believe it or not, history podcasts, especially in their early stages, tend not to be cash cows. Shocker, I know. I too was blindsided by this news. Now, I didn't go into this for the money. I think that much is obvious. But unfortunately, books, research materials, and equipment aren't free. If you are interested in supporting this project, please go to patreon.com/Diogenes Lamp Podcast and become a member. When you become a member, you'll get access to bonus episodes, our Discord chat, and anything else we'll offer in the future as this community grows. If you don't want to support me financially or can't, that's fine too. I get it. But please, make sure to hit the like button on any episode you enjoyed listening to and subscribe to the podcast on your preferred podcast listening medium. Your support is appreciated. Thanks for listening, and now on to the show. I belong to a small country, a rocky promontory in the Mediterranean. It has nothing to distinguish it but the efforts of its people, the sea, and the light of the sun. Yorgos Seferis. Good evening and welcome to the Greek Civil War segment of the Diogenes Lamp podcast, episode 10, The Big No. We got Basil here with us again. How you doing, Basil?
Good. I didn't say no to this, so that's my big no.
You didn't say no. Well, that's good. The big yes, because we need you.
The big yes.
I've been trying to secretly replace you with someone since episode... No, I'm joking. Just so you know, I couldn't find anyone, though, that would sign the contract that you signed where I have you as a captive audience to... No, I don't know if this really... Yeah, I don't think this is really counts as a captive audience because you're responding to me and whatnot, but...
I'm captivated.
Captivated to the chain. Oh no! Yeah. No, you're irreplaceable, Basil. You're irreplaceable.
Thank you.
Like that Beyonce song. On that note, where we left off last, Metaxas was doing everything he could to prepare for what he saw as an inevitable conflict with Italy, and Mussolini was trying his best to manufacture a crisis with Greece in order to try to justify an invasion, just like he did in 1923 after the Tellini incident, and then in Ethiopia in 1934. But Metaxas and the Greeks continued to practice self-restraint, seeing the trap being set. So, even so, Mussolini wouldn't give up on trying to provoke the Greeks. And I think I'm sure you've heard of this event, like everyone has, not everyone has, but it's a very well-known event. On August 15th, in what will become known as one of the most detestable Italian actions up to this point, up there with the Corfu incident, an Italian submarine torpedoed the Greek warship Eli, which was docked in a port on the island of Tinos, killing close to a dozen sailors and injuring dozens of others. All of this happened, by the way, in front of thousands of religious pilgrims, giving one lady a fatal heart attack as well. F you for a Greek person.
Yeah, in the biggest, one of the biggest religious spots of Greece.
Right, exactly. It's on Tinos as well, as you know.
Right.
I'm glad you brought that up because, for people that don't know, Tinos is a very well-known, a religious island.
Pilgrimage site.
So, this is an especially degenerate thing to do. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Tinos, I don't know, they found a buried icon apparently in 1893, a farmer did, and several miracles had happened there, thus the pilgrimage and stuff like that. There's Tinos is a place where a very old religious grandma would go to make her pilgrimage, or just a lot of people, many people do. Kind of like Mount Athos. I don't think I'd put it on the same level as Mount Athos, but it's up there. For sure.
People crawl up the steps to do the
is that what they do? They crawl?
I think.
I have heard that. Now you mentioned it. I have heard the crawling thing.
Right. Now I'm like, oh God.
No. I've heard this before. So yeah, this is like what a fu to do on the day and
Yeah.
the location. So the Greek government officially announced that the nationality of the submarine was unknown. But the same day, investigators were able to prove from fragments of the torpedo that they were of Italian origin. Right. There's still a lot of debate to this day from the Italian side as to why the crew of the submarine Delfino, that was the name of it, decided to do what they did. Apparently, the Italian Navy had orders to attack British ships in the Aegean, but the ship wasn't British, right? Additionally, August 15th, like we talked about, it's also a holy day, not just for Greek Orthodox people, but for Catholics as well. Right. Albeit not to the same extent, but nonetheless, still, like it's also a holy day for them. Even the well-known Italian historian Mario Cervi, who wrote a lot about the war with Greece, he has like a famous book called The Hollow Legions, which is like a translation of what he wrote, said that, end quote, the torpedoing could not have been worse timed, end quote. And that's from Mario Cervi. Metaxas, knowing that Mussolini wanted nothing more than Greece to respond, did the exact opposite. Right. He sat tight, refused to be labeled as the one to start hostilities, and about a week later called up 2 divisions for mobilization and waited. Now, 2 divisions is only something like 20 to 30,000 soldiers, give or take, depending on how up to strength the division is. But the mobilization showed that the armed forces had indeed come leaps and bounds from where they had been, even just from a few years ago. Metaxas was happy with the results, and as we can see from his diary, he wrote, end quote, the machine is running exceptionally well. So, Metaxas is happy. He is happy with the results. Now, I don't want to give you the impression or idea that the torpedoing of Eli was some kind of turning point, which pissed everyone off and cemented public and government opinion to resist at all costs the Italians. Okay, it wasn't It wasn't the torpedoing. Everyone's like, "Oh my God, we have to resist." Just 3 days earlier, on the 12th, Metaxas announced at a cabinet meeting that he would resist not just the Italians, but the Axis powers in general to the end. So it wasn't torpedoing.
Which is, just it's interesting that it didn't result in an attack, because Lord knows anytime like something like that happens, everyone kind of rallies around revenge and all that stuff. Especially again on a religious holiday in a religious place, like you would think it struck the hearts of people and they'd say, "Go after them."
Right.
But
exactly.
Good that they didn't. The public, and him.
Yeah.
I guess that was the whole plan, like you said. But it's good that it didn't work.
No, you're 100% right. Like Metaxas was really committed to being like, you know what? They're going to be the ones. They're going to fully attack us. We will respond. But he was committed again to resist the Axis powers to the end. This was to the consternation of a few ministers who were nervous for a war especially with Germany. Everyone was like, fuck the Italians. They were very much on board with that. But, Germany's an ally with Italy. And there was some Germanophiles within his ministry, within his cabinet.
Yeah.
And like internal divisions, pro-Axis sentiment within the 4th of August regime was nothing new. We'll get into this later. As we'll see, there will be ministers and generals here and there that will, let's put it this way, they'll put their skill sets to work in a different kind of way in the near future. No spoilers, but you get the idea.
And Tom, real quick, like, where did Papagos fall in this kind of arrangement in terms of German, pro-German, not German?
We're talking about like the general Papagos,
right?
Papagos, no, he's not pro-German. He actually ends up in a concentration camp. Yeah. He gets out after, but he's very. He ends up in a concentration camp. He survives, but yeah, he is not pro-German per se. No. So the beautiful but apprehensive Greek summer of 1940 came and went, and fall brought with it more of the same. Just 2 or so weeks after the sinking of the naval cruiser Eli, Germany got involved in a border dispute between Hungary and Romania and were invited to help arbitrate, meaning Germany was invited to arbitrate. This arbitration resulted in the loss of the Romanian region of Transylvania, you know where Count Dracula is from, I believe anyways, which then led to political instability as a symptom of national humiliation, which tends to happen when you lose part of your, country, which then led to the ousting of the current government in Romania to be replaced with a fascist pro-Axis government. So,
yeah, we can see where this is going.
Yeah, so there goes one pact of the Balkan member out of the picture. Romania is out of the Balkan Pact now. Italy kept up its naval clashes with Britain, and on September 13th, they decided to invade British-controlled Egypt from Italian-controlled Libya. Right, so Italy, aside from Ethiopia, they were already in Libya before that.
Okay.
So, yeah, both not great things happening on the diplomatic front. The war drums keep beating, right? And it wasn't just happening, or it wasn't just beating on the battlefield either. In Italy, the propaganda machine was doing its best to churn out overtly anti-Greek pro-war narratives. The stuff being pumped out was like pretty predictable, right? Stuff like the Greeks are British pawns, the Greeks are oppressing the Albanian Chams, Greece has become a British base used to attack Italy, yada yada. Greece has plans to attack Albania. That was like another big thing, Again, like always finding like justification and excuse, like always finding an excuse, right?
Yeah.
This is all nonsense, of course, but dictators are going to dictate, right? Dictators are going to have their propaganda. And just as Metaxas had his propaganda machine, don't forget, so did Mussolini. Although behind this propaganda blitz, the Italian military was amassing on the Albanian border. Like, it wasn't just talk. Like, they were, there was some good news, though, although not known to Metaxas and company just yet. On October 16th, Mussolini sent an emissary to Sofia, the capital of Bulgaria, to try to get Bulgaria to agree to attack Greece at the same time as Italy would, forcing Greece to fight both in Epirus on the Albanian front and in Macedonia on the Bulgarian front. The prospect of Bulgaria getting that nice Mediterranean port they had always coveted, prized Thessaloniki, would be quite tempting for Bulgaria, right? As you can imagine. But King Boris III was no idiot, right? Aside from knowing that the Metaxas line was built for the sole purpose of repelling Bulgaria, like that was its existence, and that the Bulgarian army was not equipped enough to overcome the 300-kilometer long concrete monster, he declined. King Border was also worried about his border with Turkey, Greece's at the time Balkan Pact ally. Again, we talked about that border.
Why was he worried about that?
What was that?
Why was he worried about that border?
Well, he was worried because the treaty that Greece had signed with Turkey, remember, ensuring the land border with Bulgaria. He was worried that Turkey, if Bulgaria attacked Greece, that Turkey actually would attack Bulgaria and honor its treaty.
Since it would be their border now together.
Right.
Okay.
Right. It was on that side. So at least for now, the Balkan Pact was still relevant and still alive, and Turkey, diplomatically anyways, you could say, helped play a role. Wasn't the sole role. There was deterrence, a big part of it. But the threat of Turkey, saying, hey, we actually signed these treaties, and this time we're actually going to honor them, played a role. So,
a refreshing take.
What was that?
A refreshing,
Yeah, for sure. It's refreshing that Turkey actually helped play like a supportive role in this case, right? So Bulgaria declined. They're like, nah, if you do this, you're on your own. No way, Jose. Yeah. And, I know, for 2-3 episodes now or whatever, we've been talking about, the war is coming, the war is coming, the war is coming. The barbarians are on their way, yada, yada. But the truth is that by mid to late October, the barbarians were at the gates. Italian troops continued to amass in the Albanian border. A slow partial mobilization was occurring, and cables from the Greek embassy in Rome continued to roll in warnings to be on the lookout for an imminent attack. Actually, there's a really like moving account written by Metaxas' wife Lela about an encounter she had with him right before the invasion. So like this is like an encounter she had with him. And quote, returning from the ministry, Metaxas sat at the table for lunch, and in a cheerful mood he said, "Now they can come. We are ready. We will defeat them." There were only the two of us at the table, and what impressed me was his calmness and the satisfaction etched on his face. I had forgotten what he had said exactly then at the same place, but vaguely something to the effect, "Now we will keep quiet. We will ignore their torpedoists until the time is right when we will be ready. We shall take our revenge, but we must get ready first." End quote.
Nice.
Isn't that crazy? It's like very, like not like insightful. It's like very wow.
Yeah, very like atypical of someone who is really a dictator.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I always assume a dictator is
bombastic,
prideful, like very emotion driven.
Yes, absolutely. Not reserved, not controlled.
Right.
Not doing stupid shit like Mussolini and like constantly doing this and doing that. And no, yeah. I mean, Metaxas, dictator, authoritarian, absolutely. But he was different.
Right.
He was not, I wouldn't throw him by any means, genocide aside, right? And racism aside with Hitler and Mussolini. I still wouldn't throw him in the same boat, because he was, as we're going to see, like Metaxas also was a military genius. Like he really was. Like Mussolini, we're going to see is like an idiot. Mussolini is a complete asshat. There's literally a quote where Hitler talks about how Mussolini appears to be like a school child that didn't do his homework. Where Mussolini's like, this guy's a fucking moron. Like he's like literally. Mussolini was a fucking idiot. I'm serious. And Hitler wasn't like that. I mean, Hitler gets like so much credit by like weird, pretty much clean Weimar shit people that people like, this phenomenon where people are like somehow like praising Nazis these days. I don't know. It's fucking weird, but there's so much of this stuff going around. But like Hitler also like was not the smartest either. Like he fucked up a lot of stuff. But Metaxas again really was, say what you want about, but when it came to military strategy and stuff, he was smart. He was smart. So the Greeks had already begun a quiet but steady mobilization, calling to arms, eventually anyways, some 85,000 or so soldiers. To be clear, though, mobilization didn't really take off until the war would start. Remember, Metaxas, even up to this point, was still super wary to give the Italians any pretext for the invasion. He was still hoping, holding out, maybe war can be avoided. He really did not want war. And mobilization aside, other commanders like General Haralambos Katsimitros in Epirus had been prepping since as early as 1938 by doing stuff like building tank traps along valley roads, constructing forts in strategic positions, finding caves that were then stocked with artillery and weapons caches for soldiers to use in any ensuing battle. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, people had been preparing. They had been preparing slowly. And if you haven't caught on by now, we've been following one of our main characters for a while, arguably since his birth. He's been really our main character since, let's say, episode 6 or so. I'm talking about the chief, the leader, Metaxas. And we're lucky to have access to his personal memoirs. Quote, "No Italian attack today," he had written on October 25th. Then one day later, and quote, "No attack today either."
Literally live streaming it, basically.
No, right? He's like going day by day. Not today. Then, just 2 days after Metaxas' last diary entry, at a quarter or so before 3 a.m. on October 28th, on 1940, which happened also to be 18 years and 1 day after Mussolini's march on Rome and subsequent seizure of power, which I'm sure totally wasn't planned, right? Metaxas was visited by the Italian ambassador Grazi. Due to it being 3 a.m. and that this visit was unplanned, Metaxas threw on a night robe, pair of slippers, and made his way downstairs to greet who he had been told was actually a French diplomat. The security guard appeared to have gotten the tricolors mixed up, probably like due to it being like 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Surprised to see Grazi instead, Metaxas invited everyone to a small room on the first floor so they could sit, talk, and find out what the fuck are you doing? It's 3 in the morning. Like, although Metaxas very well may have had an idea, but still, you have a diplomat busy at 3 in the morning. Yeah. So quite abruptly, after having sat down, Grazi handed Metaxas a note that accused Greece of violating its neutrality in the conflict between the British and Italy and threatening Albania. All of this, which could and would, quote, not be tolerated by Italy. The note went on to say that as a result of these provocations, Italy would move at 6 a.m. to seize strategic, important positions within Greece and not to hinder Italian forces in their operations. Metaxas, having shook his head the entire time while reading the note, calmly put it down and said, Alors c'est la guerra, which is like in French is the language of the diplomats, right? Then it is war. That was the thing. Apparently there's other quotes I've heard too, like, I can't decide to sell my house in a day. I can't sell my country in a war. No, that's like another thing that I've read that he said. Grazi insisted that he could accept that war wasn't necessary. And Grazi had like a lot of respect for Metaxas. A lot. Grazi didn't know until like the morning of that this was going to happen actually. And they had kept telling Grazi, no, nothing, don't worry, we're not going to attack Greece. And then like Grazi was as blindsided by this as Metaxas was. So, Grazi's telling him it's not necessary. But just to entertain the ludicrousness of this request, Metaxas goes, he asked the ambassador, what were the strategic points specifically? Let's hear it, Grazi. What are the points? Grazi knew the same thing that Metaxas knew. That just like this request and just like the murder of Daut Hoxha and every other Italian offer or provocation at the end of the day, all of these requests or provocations or events were just pretexts and smokescreens for Mussolini's true desire, war with Greece. That was it. Grazi was unable to reply to Metaxas' question because there were no strategic points, of course, right? Grazi put his head down stumped, and Metaxas responded to Grazi's silence. Quote, so you see, it is war, Metaxas said. Like, you see, you can't even answer your own question. It's obviously war. Like,
you're
clearly.
Bluffing me.
Yeah, like, clearly This is bullshit. There's no strategic points. You guys just want war. You've wanted war now for years. Like, it's war. The meeting ended. The Italian ambassador Grazi, with his aide, left, and time ticked towards the 6 a.m. deadline per the Italian ultimatum is 6 a.m. In reality, the Italians would cross into Greek territory about a half hour or so before the ultimatum deadline. Right, so they won't even honor their own 6 a.m. Metaxas' response, his denial of the Italian request for a de facto surrender, would be reinterpreted by his propaganda machines and then again in international press, and eventually replaced with a single Greek word, όχι, as we know it today, or no. And as we know, obviously, October 28th, national holiday in Greece, second biggest patriotic holiday next to Greek Independence Day, right?
Yeah.
That's like one of the myths per se is that all he said was no.
Right.
That's so like, and now mind you, like, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. And actually, I've heard that it was on the phone. Like someone called him and he just said no in Greek. Like, it's good to hear what actually happened.
Exactly. And if you think about it, like, think of like it being reinterpreted as όχι, no, via his propaganda machine and the 4th of August regime, which wanted to mimic ancient Greece. And then think of ancient Greece, you had the Spartans. He specifically wanted it to be like a Spartan state. The Spartans were known for being what? Laconic, right? Short, brief, witty. Persians come, say, lay down your weapons. What do the Spartans say? Molon laver, come and take them, right? Our arrows will blot out the sun. We'll fight in the shade, right? It was always, to be laconic is to be short. They weren't like the Athenians, long oration speeches. The Spartans were the opposite. They hated that shit.
Yeah.
They didn't like that. So his propaganda
they wanted
machine.
to play into that. Yeah.
Exactly. This is the image they wanted to play into, and they wanted to reinterpret it and give it to his people. You see, we're like the ancient Spartans. We're brief. We're short.
Yeah.
We're laconic. So that's it. Yeah, absolutely. We are lucky also to have a first-hand account of what Athens looked like the morning of October 28th, 1940, provided by a young diplomat, Mr. Angelos Vlachos. And quote, all of Athens was out in the street. Thousands of people shouting and trampling over the ministry's garden orchard, having also surrounded Metaxas' parked car. Metaxas himself was by the outer gate, surrounded by his 2 bodyguards, whom he ordered to step aside as the crowd got to him and swept him on its shoulders across to the army general headquarters. I saw the dictator live the best moment of his life. End quote. Oh my God. And indeed, it possibly was. I mean, think of how we followed Metaxas' life from when he was born to his multiple exiles in Corsica and Sardinia or wherever else, right? Everything he's been through, dodging the execution of the 6, per se, when he didn't take the job offer. All this stuff, all his diary where he said, I've been a failure, I've been this, I've been that, to this moment. Nuts.
Wild.
Absolutely wild. And now in reality, this moment, this event aside, it's not like Metaxas just going around Athens, sucking up adulation, worship me. Before this textbook fairy tale-esque event of Metaxas practically living his dream, the wheels of the Greek military machine had already started moving. So like we talked about, at 5:30 a.m., when the Italians were already rolling into Greek territory, Metaxas held a cabinet meeting, presenting the paperwork for the general mobilization, asking for signatures. And, quote, if anyone disagrees, he may resign. Everyone signed.
Yeah.
Right? So everyone's on board. Everyone's like, absolutely.
Let's do it.
Now, for anyone listening who's really into famous historical battles or just into like World War II in general, probably has a pretty good idea of what's going to happen next. And what has gone down as one of the greatest David versus Goliath wins in modern history. The Italians get absolutely trounced, right? Mussolini's humiliated, to the shock of everyone, many Greeks included. As much as I would love to get into the Battle of Greece, to be frank, the internet and world is filled to the brim with YouTube videos, books like John Carr's The Defense and Fall of Greece that we've been using a lot, and even other podcast episodes just on this battle. So because of all of that, I'm not going to get that deep into it because, again, it's been covered 1,000 times. Military history is not my strong spot, as you will see. And we need to keep the show moving to make it eventually to the Greek Civil War, after all, right? With that being said, we're still absolutely going to talk about it. And I'll do my best to give us a solid take, at least to the point where things start to go to hell in a handbasket for the Italians, which is almost immediately. This is, after all, the first Allied victory of World War II and the zenith of Metaxas' career, which will largely define his legacy to this day. And on that note, that's it for today. Please join us next time as World War again comes to Greece and the last 4 or so years of planning are put to the ultimate test. Take care,
Για να φτιάξουμε τα όσα γκρεμίσαν, ας κοιτάξουμε μόνο μπροστά. Η Ελλάδα ποτέ δεν πεθαίνει, δεν της πιάζει φοβερά καμιό.